Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sportswatch. My name is Tin, and joining me, as per usual, is Lachlan Sheriff. Lachlan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks, Tim. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. Obviously, took a small hiatus to let the rest of the Six News team cover the election. Again, congratulations to them for a stellar campaign coverage. But yeah, ultimately, we've had some time off. We've had the chance to review sort of the structure of the show, and so starting forward, we will be trying something new with the show. We'll be taking it in a different perspective, and we hope you will enjoy this new angle. So I think the best thing we could just do is to just get underway with pretty big story. I mean, over in NPL Victoria, obviously, it's been clear there's been a big shake-up in the table, and down the bottom of the table, near the feet of the table, two clubs have decided that it's time for change, and obviously Melbourne Knights and Port Melbourne have said goodbye to Ivan Franjic and John Markovski, respectively. So, I mean, we've both been keeping an eye on it out on NPL Victoria. I mean, I'll just ask for your thoughts. I mean, what do you think so far of these changes? Obviously, they've had difficult seasons so far.
Well, look, it's been a huge shake-up out there in NPL Victoria. First off, as we talked about, South Melbourne fired their boss. They've now brought in Sinisa Kahardzic. He had the first game on Tuesday. They beat the Greens 2-1. So good start for him. But South Melbourne's not the only place where it's been shaken up. As you mentioned, Knights got rid of Franjic. Now, he was brought in midway through last season. I think he kind of figured the boat a little bit. They were looking good. And then I've upset him this season. They're currently at 11th. So I felt like it was time to move on there. Again, you look at Port Melbourne. Markovski was brought in start of the season. They had a pretty, it wasn't an awful season last year, but it definitely wasn't as good as they would have liked. So they brought in Markovski, hoped he could take them further. And in the end, he's actually put them in a worse position. They currently sit rock bottom of NPL Victoria. So look, two decisions that I thought had to happen eventually. I wasn't too keen on Franjic. I know he steadied the ship last season, but I thought you give him 2-3 years. I didn't see him actually getting them back up to the prominent positions they were 5-10 years ago when they were one of the biggest teams in Victoria. So again, I wanted him to do well, but it just wasn't working out. Markovski, again, he's been around for a while. He's been a pretty seasoned coach around these leagues, but no, it just didn't work out for him either. And Port Melbourne, they've got the squad to be competing. I don't think they are the worst team in the league on paper. I think there's definitely worse teams than them on paper. So for them to be sitting rock bottom with, I believe, only 7 points, just not good enough. And obviously, Markovski had to leave. So I suppose now it'd be interesting to see who these two teams bring in, because it's a massive merry-go-round out there right now in NPL Victoria with coaching. So anyone can be brought in to help these teams.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, we'll talk about Port. You mentioned them. Obviously, on paper, their team isn't one of the worst teams, and realistically, when you look at their results, they haven't been too terrible either. I mean, they beat Preston Lions, which is obviously the one win that everyone will think about, and of course, they beat Green Gully as well, who, of course, they've had their own sort of struggles throughout the season. But of course, for Port, of course, something had to change. Obviously, Rod Markovski, like you mentioned, he's a seasoned coach. He's been around the NPL Victoria for a long, long time. He's been around state football for a long, long time. The Markovski name is a very famous name in Victorian football. And obviously, look, he's obviously been brought in as sort of a move to try and push Port. Obviously, Port have been a finals contending team in recent years. And I mean, rock bottom is not where you want to sit, especially it's not the change that you want to be making at this point in time when want to be a successful team, especially with some of the talent that they've got coming through their youth systems as well, especially.
Absolutely. They're a great club. They had like I said, definitely could have improved, but it's still a solid season last year. I think the goal this year had to be finals to make that top 6. Instead, Markovski has unfortunately not put them in the position they want to be. So, like I said, Port Melbourne, they're definitely a club who want to improve. Obviously, they're a club who definitely have the talent to improve. And, as you said, Markovski is a seasoned coach. He's been around for a while, but just wasn't working. They made the tough but correct decision, in my opinion, to move on from him. And I'll be looking forward to seeing who they bring in now to try and steady the ship and survive the season, because survival has to be the goal for them now, from here on out.
100%, and it'll be interesting to keep an eye out on that. But we'll talk about the other change, which was Melbourne Knights over at Summer Street. Obviously, Brandish, like you mentioned, he was brought in last season, mid-season, when they lost Ben Surrey to, I believe it was Brisbane Roar. And ultimately, yes, he did steady the ship for Melbourne Knights. Obviously, look, it's been a difficult season for Knights on and off the pitch. Obviously, results haven't been good off the pitch. They've struggled with heaps of injuries. It's been a massive crisis over there, and they've never necessarily had the full squad. And to be honest, you can't argue that they've looked terrible all year. you could. I mean, they've got the three wins already. One against St Albans, the other against Heidelberg in the season opener, and the other against Port Melbourne, who of course we've discussed. And ultimately, look, it's been a difficult year for Knights, but do you think Frangic maybe has maybe cut himself a bit short here? I mean, obviously, it's not the results you want to be, but considering the factors such as the injury crisis, I mean, it's not like there's very much else he could have done, really.
Yeah, look, as I said, I was never the biggest fan of Franger coming in. I'll be honest, I thought, it was a bit too early of a step for him. It seems like only yesterday he was playing. But to be fair to him, like you said, they've had a massive injury list. He's definitely had some good results. So could they give him a bit more time? I see it both ways. On one hand, yes, he's only 37. There's plenty of time for him in his career. He'll go on to have a great managerial career, maybe even in the A-League. So plenty of time for him. Could Knights have given him some of that time? Well, look, on one hand, like I said, they had some good results. On the other, they sit 11th, one spot outside the relegation zone. They're Melbourne Knights Football Club. They're not some small club. This is one of, if not maybe even the biggest club in Victoria. So they don't want to be sitting 11th. They want to be competing for finals. And this isn't a Frangic issue. Frangic hasn't completely ruined them because, like you said, they weren't doing very well before he came in last season either. So, look, he could have stayed on, sure, but I think it was okay for them to be ruthless. Like I said, Frangic's still young, will have plenty of time to get a better job, a more seasoned job for him. But look, did they have to be ruthless? I suppose so, because if North go down, it'd be terrible for not only them, but for Victorian football, because they're one of the biggest clubs in the league. Like we talk about South Melbourne, we don't want South Melbourne to go down because they've been one of the biggest clubs in Victoria. Same with Knights, it would feel weird to have them go down. So look, Knights made the call, they had to be brutal, and in the end, I know it's hard, I know Frangic's still young, but I agree, I think it was the correct decision.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of discourse around that in the Victorian football community. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you need change, then you've got to start at the top a lot of times, and that's a decision that both Knights and Port Melbourne have made. So we'll have a look at the state tables, the NPL Victoria table, and as you can see at that bottom, it is St Albans Saints, Melbourne Knights, South Melbourne, Altona Magic, and Port Melbourne. Near the top, it's been the usual suspects: Avondale, Heidelberg, Dandy Thunder, Oakley Cannons, Preston Lions, Hume City. But yeah, I mean, when you look at that bottom, I mean, yeah, you talk about Knights in South Melbourne. They're going to be they're going to be huge losses for NPL Victoria if they go down, especially South Melbourne, who have been widely discussed. Not just on this show, but throughout the rest of the Victorian football community. But ultimately, no matter where you look, yeah, it's been an interesting season. Just from a footballing perspective and from a table perspective.
For sure. I mean, like you said, South Melbourne, they made the top four. They were the first team to fire their manager this season. So shocking from them. I think we predicted them to win the grand final. So a bit of an interesting season for them. They've got Hardwick now, like I said, he was Bentley in the Cup. So a good start for him. They've got Oakley now. They'll have to see where they go from there. Oakley been in pretty good form, so we'll have to see if Hardwick is really up to the test. But like you said, there's some clubs there who, you look at Knights, who are a big club. You look at St Albans, who I think have a pretty good support base, and I'd love to see them stay up. Even you look at Melbourne Victoria Reserves, so obviously it's a bit different because they're not, they're not a state league club, they're an A League reserves team. But I've been quite impressed with what I've seen from Victory fans that the Victory turnout they get home in the Matildas. So again, that's another big club who will need to fight up, and they're looking okay, but nonetheless, it's another team there who are maybe in the mix to go down. It's been a pretty good relegation fight so far this season. We're still obviously a long way to go, but I've been impressed with what I've seen so far with these teams, such as St Albans, such as Green Gully, who were looking for a minute and fought their way out. Now I think they're maybe closer to finals on the bottom of the table now, so they've definitely improved. So look, a lot of teams there who are really digging in, who don't want to go down, especially with the extra spot, 3 teams going down the season. So no, it's been a good relegation race so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends.
Yeah, 100%. And as always, we recommend you get out to your local pub and catch some of the action as it starts to heat up. We'll carry on to the next topic. Obviously, we'll stay on the page of football. Obviously, the A League, both the men's and the women's, they're now entering their finals. Obviously, the women's now down to the second leg of their semi-finals, and the men's just starting down this weekend. So, I mean, we'll go through those fixtures for you. Obviously, the women's have their second legs with Melbourne Victory and Adelaide United to play at the home of the Matildas on, I believe it's Saturday. Victory currently up 3-1. And City and the Mariners will play down at Casey Fields on Sunday. And I believe that score is 2-2 at the moment on aggregate. So, I mean, we'll talk about the A-League women's season because it's been an interesting season. It's been discussed all year. And I think more interestingly, we've got the two Melbourne teams at the top who have been comprehensively the best teams all year. I mean, Victory have been one of the more entertaining teams. They played fast, exciting football, and then City went invincible. There's a lot of rhetoric that can be discussed around that. I mean, it's been a great season, and on paper we're looking at a pretty interesting grand final.
Yeah, look, I mean, Melbourne City are, like you said, invincible. Best team in the league by far. I know Victory actually managed to take it to the final day, or maybe the second final day. I think it was second round, second final match week. But look, both teams had very strong seasons. You look at Melbourne City and look at that dominant team. Look at McNamara up front, for example, who won the Golden Boot. Then you look at the Victory side, who have a strong balanced team all around the pitch. It's definitely been two incredible teams. But with that said, you can't rule out both Adelaide or Central Coast. But especially Central Coast, who managed to get, obviously not a point, but if it was a league game, we got a point on the weekend against Melbourne City. That was a 2-2 draw. So now you have to go back to Casey. I know it's a home game for Melbourne City. But nonetheless, you go back to Casey now on the Sunday. You have to say Central Coast like their chances. I mean, they managed to get a draw against the best team in the A-League to win Invincible. So, no, it's a good game for them. And who knows? Finals are a different breed. We look at finals, all around the world at any league. You see upsets all the time. These finals are, pressure cookers. They really do show different form to what happened in the regular season, because the top regular season, it's a completely different brand of football. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens on that Sunday game between Central Coast and Melbourne City, because I wouldn't be surprised if Central Coast pull off an upset. I really wouldn't.
I mean, 100%. Like you mentioned, obviously finals produces incredible stories, incredible upsets. That's what we'll be looking forward to. But while I stay on the topic of this City team, I mean, 2 years ago they were knocked out in the quarterfinals by Victory in the derby. I say quarterfinal, so qualifying final. Sorry. And last year they were knocked out by Sydney in the grand final. Obviously, this City team have been incredible all year. Do we think they finally have what it takes to break the hoodoo, and just finally get one more trophy in that cabinet? I mean, this has been an incredible team for the last couple of years, but I mean, it's time for them to produce that championship trophy. Do we reckon they have what it takes?
I mean, look, the pressure's on. This is a Melbourne City team who, ever since their inclusion, I believe they went invincible in their first season in the A Women's. Ever since then, it puts a bit of a tiger on your back, because this is one of the best teams. This is one of the richest teams in the comp. This is a team who everyone wants to beat. It's the same with the men's, but perhaps even more so on the women's, who have been so dominant ever since their inclusion. So these last couple of seasons have been disappointing. Going out in the derby, losing the grand final to Sydney, these are results that should disappoint them, and have definitely disappointed the fan base. So now you go invincible, the pressure really is on, because, again, the target is on your back. People want to go out and say, we beat Melbourne City. So Central Coast, didn't win, but they still got a pretty important 2-2 draw against them, now going back into Casey. So do I think Melbourne City get it done on Sunday? I will say yes, just because you can never rule them out, especially at home. They haven't lost a game all season. But no, there's definitely a lot of pressure there, because even if Central Coast don't get it done, as soon as Victory beat Adelaide, which I think they will without 3-1, you go into that derby grand final, there'll be a lot of eyes on that, and Victory would love to cause the upset and get one more over their local rivals. So Melbourne City, best team in the league all season by far, but you definitely have to watch out, because there's a lot of teams out there who would love to say they beat you.
100%. And again, we'll be keeping an eye on that. That'll be an extremely interesting storyline. But we'll talk about the A-League men's now. And obviously, we discussed the fixtures. Obviously, Saturday, arguably one of the biggest matchups the A-League has ever seen, Western Sydney Wanderers versus Melbourne Victory. I mean, we'll take a moment to talk about that, because obviously these are two of arguably the biggest fan bases in Melbourne. We know they have, in Australia, sorry. We know they have two of the best fan bases, two of the most, arguably the best active supports. I mean, anytime these two teams meet, it's fireworks. It's absolutely incredible stuff on and off the pitch. And well, at this rate, they've already sold out 10,000 tickets. I mean, it looks like Saturday night in Parramatta is going to be an absolute cracker.
For sure. I mean, let's be real. Two of the best fan bases in the league by far. You look at Melbourne Victory, the support they bring, not only home games, but also do a lot of away games. And then Western Sydney, who have the home game this time. I mean, it's going to be a massive game in Parramatta. It's going to be two huge fan bases, two teams who really want to win. I'm looking forward to watching it. I think it's a must-watch game. I think if you just, again, you focus on the size of these two clubs, the history behind these two clubs, two of the biggest clubs in the A-League, two of the biggest brands in the A-League, two of the most well-known clubs, I think, all around the world from Australia. So I really do think this is a must-watch game, a game that you have to tune into because I don't know who's going to win. I think it could go either way. I've thought about it a lot. I could see with the Wanderers winning 2 or 3-0. I could see Victoria getting an upset and maybe sneaking a late goal, or who knows, maybe even dominating the Wanderers and winning 3-0 themselves. So this is definitely a huge game, and I would definitely recommend tuning in because look, these finals don't come around often. These two big matches, obviously there'll be smaller teams make the final as well. That's good as well because we want to see these upsets. But at the same time, you get a chance to watch two of the biggest teams in the A-League go up against each other, clash the Titans. You want to tune in. So definitely don't go anywhere on Saturday because it's going to be one hell of a game.
It's 100% going to be worth keeping an eye on, and it's going to be an absolute poster game for the A-League. We'll move on to a next point of topic now, and one that's a pretty big one in Australian sport. And, well, based on the reports we've heard, it sounds like Perth is going to get their shot at an NRL team. It sounds like the North Sydney Bears will enter a partnership to start the Perth franchise or the Western Bears franchise out there. So obviously, Perth is an experiment that the NRL has tried for a couple of years now. They've been playing games at Optus Stadium for, I believe, a good part of 3-4 years now, maybe a little longer. I can't say for sure, but yeah, I mean, obviously, it's going to be an interesting it'll be an interesting thing for sure. They're going to be based out of HBF Park, which is of course the rectangular stadium there. I mean, I'll just ask for your thoughts on it. Obviously, it's been a long going experiment for the NRL. They've been working on getting a team out there for a long time. They've been experimenting with playing matches out there for a long time. Obviously, it's a big day for Perth and for Perth sports fans and Perth rugby league fans in particular.
Yeah, look, it's definitely it's a decision that we expected for a while now. We always felt that when the NRL got that 18th team, it will be based in WA. That is what's happened. You've got a team in Perth now, which is great to see. Like you mentioned, they've experimented in WA for a while now. Obviously, they've had games played in there. I even think back to the 90s when they had the Western Bears playing the ARL. So that was the last time Western Australia had a pro rugby team in their state. And it'll be finally coming back, I believe, aim for 2027. So only a couple of years away, which is good to see as well. Look, the NRL's an ambitious league. We can all tell that. Whether it's sending games to Vegas, whether it's bringing a team to Papua New Guinea, this is a league that wants to grow, pretty much all around the world, if you want to say it like that. So, Perth is maybe the most glamorous thing they've tried compared to Vegas, of course, but nonetheless, it's definitely a good move. It's a move that we want to see. It's a great move for all involved, especially rugby fans in WA, and I was looking forward to seeing it because, aside from the Storm, it's pretty much just been Queensland and New South Wales and also the Team New Zealand, so just dominating it for the whole time period the NRL's been around for. So definitely look forward to seeing a mixture there in WA. Does this expand to, maybe a team in Adelaide, a second team Victoria? Who knows? There's definitely a lot of different ways they could look at it if they want to expand past 18 teams. But nonetheless, definitely looking forward to seeing how the Bears go in our Perth because it's a great team. It's going to be a great supporting base. There'll be, like you said, NRL is definitely a league that wants to expand, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
100%. And I think this is the point of discussion that's sort of been running around in my head for a while. Obviously, the North Sydney Bears are a traditional fan base. They've been based in Sydney for a long time. They've played in the traditional New South Wales Rugby League and the ARL before. Obviously, but they stopped playing in the top flight in 1999. So obviously that fan base is back, but of course they're not going to be based in their heartland in North Sydney, which is going to be interesting, of course. So I mean, I'll just have to ask your thoughts. I mean, how do you think that the Bears not only hang on to their traditional fan base in North Sydney, but also capitalize on, Western Australia, which is obviously a huge market out there for sports if they can pull it off properly. But at the same time, they've got to market to that traditional fan base out in Northern Sydney.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a good move. I think, there'll still be that supporting base in North Sydney, of course. You now tap into that big market of West Australian fans. And I don't even look at it as just West Australian fans. I wouldn't be surprised if you see fans in the Northern Territory and fans in South Australia jump on board with the Bears just because, you don't want to support a New South Wales team if you don't live in New South Wales. So why not go support a different team over another state who's been neglected by the NRL for so long? Why not go give them a bit of support? So I think it's definitely a huge move to capitalise on such a big market that is yet to be tapped in the NRL. Like you said, the NRL is pretty, community based. You look at teams they've got teams in Canterbury, teams in Manly, teams in Parramatta. It's these types of clubs who have run, community support again, like we talk about, big days out at these smaller grounds, these local grounds. It's great to see. Even though Perth is obviously a big city, I still think you'll see that to an extent with the Bears. Now, the reason I say that is because this is a team who, they're just one team in Western Australia. This isn't a massive, it's not like putting a team in Sydney where there's already so many teams in New South Wales. For me, it's actually almost like another community-run club. There'll be such a tight-knit fan base out there, and even though they might be playing in a bigger stadium, sure, I still do think you'll get similar fan bases and similar scenes to what you see in a Canterbury or in a Manly or in a Parramatta. So, no, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what we get from this, because it's great to see. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about it happening, and it's finally come true. So, definitely looking forward to seeing it. I've got high hopes.
Same. And like you mentioned, I mean, those NRL clubs are probably the golden standard for community clubs sort of in a professional top flight setting. I mean, yeah, you talk about playing in those like sort of suburban stadiums. It's something that the NRL has persisted with, as opposed to other codes such as the AFL and the A League. But yeah, it will 100% be interesting to keep an eye out on the Western Bears. I'm sure that I have no doubt in my mind that they will succeed out in Perth. I mean, it's a great rugby culture out there, and I'm sure it's going to be an extremely successful club and one that's going to be worth keeping an eye out on. But yeah, we'll move on to another point of topic, which I believe might be our final topic. Well, we talk about basketball now, which is NBL one. Obviously, you're heavily involved in the NBL one circle here in Victoria, here in Melbourne. You'll know a lot more about it than I do. So, I mean, I'll let you just take it away. I mean, what's been going on in the season so far?
Look, the NBL one, it's similar to an NPL. You've got 5 different leagues. You've got North, East, South, West, and Central. So they're split up pretty much by states. And look, there's an argument that this is the strongest the NBL one has ever been. There's so many different reasons for that. You look at all these exports we've got coming through, mainly from America, but also from other countries. You get talent from New Zealand. You get so much talent from all around the world. It's great to see, especially for a semi-pro league. Not only that, but you look at, for example, the Australian team going over to play New Zealand tonight. There'll be a few games of that, all on free to wear, so it'll be good to see that. There's a lot of players from NBL one clubs going there. I think about, for example, Angus Glover, who's playing at Ringwood right now, or you look at the women's. There's so many different players from the women's. There's players from NPL one South. There's players from the West. There's definitely so much that the Booms and Opals are taking from NBL one right now. So for me, there's an argument this is the strongest league it's ever been. You look at crowd support; it's been huge. Look at some of those traditional teams, such as like the Melbourne Tigers, such as Townsville Heat. These big teams who are playing all around the country. It's great to see, and not only that, but there's been a pretty massive scoring boost right now, all around, but especially in NBL one West, where I think if you had to pick one name, you look at Elijah Pepper, who's averaging 43 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. So that's just another selling point. You get incredible performances like that, where 6 games into the season he's averaging 43 points. So look, it's definitely been a league that has tried to grow ever since its induction. I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even less, maybe 6 years ago. COVID hit them hard, obviously, hit a lot of leagues hard, but it's finally back now. I think it's booming, and I don't think it's ridiculous to say this is the strongest the NBL one has ever been.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, I've only kept a slight eye on it, but from what I can tell, it's been great entertainment to watch. I mean, I'll discuss the import players. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, we've got pretty much like high level college players opting for NBL one over other alternatives such as the G League in the United States. And I'm just curious. I mean, what is it about the NBL one, do you think, that makes it so appealing to these import players? I mean, it's quite an interesting decision. I mean, especially for those people there. What makes them want to go play second division, second tier basketball in Australia? What really is it, do you think, that appeals to them?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for me. I think one of the things you look at is obviously, the culture, the language barrier. Obviously, some of these are college players would end up going to, Lithuania or Sweden. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some great leagues in Europe and some great leagues in Asia where you can go. But if you want a similar, I suppose, culture to America, want to go down to Australia, we obviously both speak English, both have similar basketball scenes. I feel obviously is much more higher than ours. But nonetheless, I definitely think there's that interest there from Americans who want to go try something new, but still in a comfort zone of, not having to learn new language, getting a similar vibe for it all. I do think another reason also, there's such a direct link between NBL one and NBL, which I love to see. Now, there's a lot of times where you look at NBL one players already contracted to the NBL, for example, like I mentioned, Elijah Pepper. He's contracted by Perth. You expect to get a pretty big role at Perth next season with how he's playing in the NBL one. Another player I mentioned, Angus Glover, who's contracted to both Ringwood and SCM Phoenix. So a lot of players look at that and they think, well, if these Australians can do it, why can't I? Why can't I go get signed by the NBL? Which, it's something that we want to see. The NBL is obviously our main league, and we love to see that. booming. But for that to happen, we need a strong support behind it, and that's where the NBL One comes in. It's NBL One off season right now, so it's not going to. So there's a lot of gap in the market for basketball, and that's obviously where the NBL One steps up. You get these foreign exports coming out. You get such incredible local talent from Australia. You get pretty much all the time you get double heads, which I think is a huge selling point for the league. You have a women's game and the men's games. You get to see two incredible games of basketball right in front of your eyes. So no, it's definitely great to see how much this league has come on since its induction, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens next.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at NBL One. Obviously, it's grown heaps since obviously the NBL One structure began a few years back, and I mean, yeah. Anyway, you look, it's been extremely positive growth for the league and the whole setup nationally. So it's been interesting. But we'll move on to one final discussion, one final topic that we found floating through the news cycle. I mean, we'll say Josh Giddey. Obviously, he's a big and interesting. He's a big player in the NBA. He's an interesting player. He's obviously one of Australia's top talents playing in the NBA. Shezza, I mean, he's been spotted in Melbourne in his off season. I mean, let's discuss what's been going on in Frankston social basketball.
Oh, well, look, I mean, there's getting a dodgy feeling, and then there's this. I think this might be pushing the line a bit. But no, you're right. Josh Giddey was seen, I believe, on Monday night, just hooping in a local game in Frankston. Now, he was playing for a team called the Vales. I believe he has, a connection with friends to this team. So it makes sense why he pulled up, decided to give it a run. He didn't play too hard, obviously. We know he's hoping to get a max contract from Chicago over this offseason or from somewhere else. He had a pretty good season with Chicago last year, so I'm sure he's hoping for that. But he didn't go too hard on that Monday night, obviously. He's still, obviously, look, he's a great player. I believe he's, 6'7", 6'8", maybe. He's a point guard. He can handle the ball. So you put him up against these players, even when he's like 100%, he's going to look pretty good. I believe he had 20 points. Assists and rebounds aren't counted at this level of basketball, but I'm sure he had a lot of those as well. But surprisingly, it wasn't even the Vales who won. It was, I believe they're called the Benny Boys, who got a pretty commanding victory in there. It was 114-80, so a 34-point win against an NBA player. You must think, how's that possibly happened? I mean, the reason that's happened is because two players had the absolute game of their life against Josh Giddey. You have Blake Jackson, I believe he's a 22-year-old basketball trainer out in Frankston, who wasn't even going to play. I believe he had sore ankles, then saw Giddey pull up, decided he had to give it a go. He had 50 points. Not only him, but Jesse Lands, his teammate, had 41. So you get 91 points combined. That's more than the entire Vales team scored. So, again, look, Giddey wasn't going 100%, but nonetheless, a pretty big night for those two boys who will now be able to say they had the game of their life against Josh Giddey. But look away from the game for a second. I think it's just great to see, an NBA player go out and give back to the community. He's had a great season. It was great to see him in Frankston. I think he shook photos with a lot of fans. He definitely gave everyone a nice family. So well done to Josh Giddey for showing up, and well done to those two boys out of the who beat him, who got 91 points combined. That's really impressive.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's a no point of discussion. I mean, if I was one of those two boys and I had a game like that, I mean, you wouldn't hear me stop talking about it at work on the next day or in union the next day. I mean, it's just a great moment. Obviously, it's good to see Giddey back in Australia and giving back to the community that's supported him for so long. But yeah, I think that is where we will leave it for this week's episode of Sportswatch. Thank you for your support once again, as always. We thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.